Nobody told you the 2026 World Cup was going to feel like a reality elimination show this early? We are barely past the opening ceremonies, the paint on the group stage table is still wet, and already a manager is gone, erased. Not after a bad run of results, not after limping through 3 group games after a single match. 90 minutes of football and an entire coaching tenure collapsed like a house of cards in a windstorm. If you thought the drama was going to wait until the knockout rounds, the World Cup had other plans. Let's go back to Sunday evening. Estadio Monterrey, Guadalupe, Mexico, Tunisia versus Sweden. On paper, an intriguing Group F opener. In reality, it turned into something Tunisia's Football Federation will spend years trying to forget. The final scoreline read Sweden 5, Tunisia 1, and scorelines like that don't just hurt, they linger. They follow you into press conferences, into training sessions, into boardrooms. They follow you until someone makes a decision. In this case, that decision came fast, brutally fast. Alexander Isak announced himself to the tournament. Viktor Gyökeres, a man who could not stop scoring goals in club football, carried that form straight into the World Cup. But the one name that cut deepest, Yassine Ayari. He scored twice. And here's the detail that makes this story so much richer than just a football result. Ayari's father is Tunisian. The son of a Tunisian man put 2 goals past the country his father was born in, on the grandest stage in world football. If this were a film script, the director would have been told to tone it down. Too dramatic, too on the nose, except it happened. It was real. And it happened in front of the entire watching world afterwards. Head coach Sabri Lamouchi stood in the post-match zone and delivered a line that in hindsight reads like a prophecy. He said they were shooting themselves in the foot. He used those exact words, hurting themselves. What he did not realize, or maybe he did, was that the bullet had already been loaded long before kickoff in Monterrey. Here is the truth about what was actually happening inside the Tunisia camp, because none of this started in Mexico. Lamouchi's record heading into this tournament was not the record of a man building momentum. In 5 matches as Tunisia head coach, he had won exactly once. 1 victory against Haiti. That was it. The rest, losses and draws. And the pre-tournament warm-up games were where the alarm bells really started ringing for anyone paying attention. Tunisia lost 1-0 to Austria. Fine, teams lose warm-up games. But then came Belgium. 5 goals, 0 reply. 5-0 in a pre-tournament. Friendly is not a result you can dismiss. That is a statement. And the statement it was making about Tunisia's defensive structure, about the team's confidence, about the relationship between the players and their tactical plan. None of it was positive. Inside the camp, the tension was already there before the squad even boarded their flight. Reports suggest that Lamouchi had brought his own son into the training base during World Cup preparations. The Federation was uncomfortable with it. Questions were reportedly asked. Explanations were reportedly demanded. Think about the significance of that before a single group game had been played, before the world's eyes had even turned fully toward this tournament. The manager and the people above him were already in a fractured relationship over trust and boundaries. That kind of friction does not disappear when the whistle blows. It festers. And then there was the moment during the Sweden match that said everything 1,000 post-match interviews never could. In the 72nd minute, with the game already beyond saving, Lamouchi substituted off defender Yohan Benalouane. Players get substituted. It happens every week in football. But the way Benalouane reacted, visibly, undeniably furious, walking off with that expression on his face, not hiding it, not masking it behind a professional handshake that told a story. When a player lets you see their frustration with you on live television at a World Cup, in front of hundreds of millions of viewers, the working relationship is not strained, it is finished. So when the Federation made their call within 24 hours of that Sweden defeat, they did not panic. They executed a decision that had been building for months. The Sweden loss was not the cause of the sacking, it was the occasion, the match that made it impossible to delay any further. And now we arrive at the history books. Because what happened next is something that has no precedent anywhere in the entire span of World Cup football. Lamouchi became the first manager in the tournament's 96-year existence to be removed after just 1 group game. Not 2, not 3. 1 coaches have been fired mid-tournament before. Henrik Kasperjak in France 1998, dismissed by Tunisia themselves actually, but only after 2 matches. South Korea did the same to Cha Bum-kun that same year, again after a pair of defeats. Spain caused a worldwide scandal in 2018 when they showed Julen Lopetegui the door 2 days before their opening game, after he had secretly agreed to take the Real Madrid job mid-tournament, but none of those precedents match this. Lopetegui never played a game. Kasperjak got 2. Lamouchi got 90 minutes and a scoreline he will never live down. What makes this even more layered is that Lamouchi was not even the first Tunisia coach to lose his job this year. Back in January, Sami Trabelsi was dismissed after a disappointing Africa Cup of Nations exit to Mali. The federation moved swiftly. Lamouchi was the answer. Brought in on a contract running through to 2028. Given time to build, to prepare, to take this team to their World Cup moment. He lasted 5 months. The federation has now gone through 2 managers in 2026. This is not an organization that gives second chances or lets problems sit and simmer. When they decide something is not working, they act. And when a federation acts that fast, they need someone capable of walking into a burning building and making it feel like a home. Tunisia went and found exactly that person. Hervé Renard. If you follow international football, you already know the name. If you know the name, you almost certainly know the image. Silver hair, white shirt, the look of a man who has spent a career doing the impossible in places nobody expected him to succeed. Renard is 55 years old and is now going to a 3rd consecutive World Cup with a 3rd different nation, Morocco in 2018, Saudi Arabia in 2022. Tunisia in 2026, each time a new country, each time a dressing room that needed steadying, each time expectations that were difficult to meet, but it was 2022 that made his reputation bulletproof. Renard took Saudi Arabia into a group containing Argentina, Lionel Messi's Argentina, a team that arrived at that World Cup as genuine favorites and left as champions and beat them. 2 goals, a result that sent shockwaves across the planet, a result that people still talk about as one of the great World Cup upsets of any generation. Renard did not just win that match. He organized a team, built a belief, and refused to be intimidated by the biggest name in the sport. That is exactly the kind of mentality Tunisia are hoping to import right now. Wapik Hazri, the former Premier League player who was serving as Lamouchi's assistant, is set to remain as part of the staff, giving Renard at least one thread of continuity to hold on to as he walks into this situation cold. And he will need it, because Tunisia's remaining schedule in Group F is not forgiving. Up next is Japan, a compact, disciplined, technically outstanding side that caused their own upsets at the previous World Cup. After that, the Netherlands, one of the most talented squads in international football. There is no gentle fixture to regroup, no beatable opponent to restore confidence. Renard gets thrown straight into the deep end. What happens now is genuinely fascinating to watch. Can a new manager arriving without preparation time, with a squad whose previous coach they just watched removed, turn the ship around against that quality of opposition? Or did the federation move so fast that they have sacrificed any realistic chance of recovery in the group stage? That is the question sitting over Monterrey right now. One coach gone, one tournament barely started, one legend landing in the middle of a storm and being asked to perform the same miracle he has pulled off before. The 2026 World Cup is 5 days old, and it has already consumed its first managerial casualty, somewhere in the record books. Next to Lamouchi's name, there is now a footnote that will never be erased. And something tells me he will not be the last.